Canada does not dump lumber into the United States, and we will continue to make the case that these current and proposed duties are unjustified. Canada is a vital supplier to our southern neighbor. We represent around a quarter of the U.S. market, and we help keep down costs of American homes while improving their quality. At this hinge moment in history, Canada is starting to shift from reliance to resilience. Together, we're going to write our own story rather than let others dictate theirs to us. We're building one Canadian economy out of 13. We're embarking on a series of nation-building projects. We're launching unprecedented investments in home building, and we are diversifying our trade partners. Throughout, we will build Canada strong with Canadian workers, Canadian technology, Canadian lumber, and Canadian values. So to turn challenge into opportunity with Minister Hodgson, Secretary of State Fuhr, today I'm announcing a series of new measures to help the softwood lumber industry pivot to a growing Canadian market and to the markets of reliable trading partners around the world. We're focused on a positive agenda of building forward for our major industries, those most affected, the softwood lumber industry, clearly, steel, aluminum, other industries as well. And that agenda starts at home, being our own best customer. It goes to big investments in improving our competitiveness, upskilling, helping our workers improve their skills, and it's also diversifying trade, and that's where we're focused. Thank you.
Canada does not dump lumber into the United States, and we will continue to make the case that these current and proposed duties are unjustified. That was the message from Ottawa. Firm, measured, but unmistakably defiant. Because the reality is simple. Canada is not the problem here. Canada is a vital supplier to our southern neighbor. We represent about a quarter of the U.S. lumber market. Our softwood helps keep down the costs of American homes. It improves their quality. It supports their growth. But right now, at this hinge moment in history, Canada is being tested. The old model, reliance on the American market, reliance on American goodwill, that model is breaking down. And so, Canada is shifting. From reliance to resilience. Together, Canadians are starting to write their own story, not letting others dictate it, not waiting to see what Washington allows, but building a future on their own terms. One Canadian economy drawn together from 13 provinces and territories. One national project built with Canadian technology, Canadian workers, and Canadian values. That was the tone when Prime Minister Mark Carney stepped before the cameras this morning, his voice steady, his message bold. He wasn't simply defending against American tariffs. He was announcing a plan to reinvent the Canadian economy from the inside out. Because the crisis is real, a trade war is no longer looming. It's here. Canadian softwood lumber, one of the country's most essential industries, is being slammed with a brutal 35% tariff by the Trump administration. A political sledgehammer aimed squarely at an industry that supports more than 200,000 Canadian jobs. Families, communities, entire towns depend on this sector. And overnight, their future has been thrown into doubt. It was no secret that Trump had been itching for this fight. For months, he has hammered away at Canada's trade practices, calling them unfair, calling our government weak, painting Canadian prosperity not as a partner success, but as a threat to American farmers, American jobs, American pride. The target wasn't just lumber. It wasn't even just trade. It was Canada's independence itself. Because this tariff isn't about a technical dispute over board feet and stumpage fees. It's about breaking the back of a Canadian industry, forcing concessions, and reminding Ottawa that America calls the shots. But this time, Canada's answer was different. Carney didn't come to the microphone with talking points. He came with a plan. And from the heart of British Columbia's lumber country, the Gorman brothers. Factory floor, he announced a sweeping strategy that went far beyond patchwork relief, a $700 million loan guarantee package to keep sawmills open, a $500 million innovation fund to retool mills for next generation, wood products from low-carbon fiber insulation to modular housing components. And then, the bombshell, a $25 billion home-building program designed to soak up Canadian lumber, drive domestic demand, and slash dependence on U.S. markets. Carney laid it out step by step. First, liquidity. Forestry companies needed breathing room. Ottawa would provide up to $700 million in loan guarantees, ensuring firms of every size had the financing to survive, adapt, and, if needed, restructure. Second, competitiveness. The government would pump $500 million, largely in grants and contributions, into new product development and market diversification. Reinforced timber, low-carbon wood fiber, insulation, prefabricated housing components. The goal: push Canadian lumber up the value chain and make it indispensable in emerging industries. Indigenous-led forestry businesses would also see new support, anchoring reconciliation in economic strength. And third, demand. Canada would become its own best customer, not just waiting for foreign buyers, but using Canadian lumber to build Canada itself, homes, ports, trade corridors, energy projects. The scale was staggering, doubling the pace of new home construction, nearly 500,000 units a year over the next decade. That alone would double the use of Canadian softwood. Lumber in residential construction, an increase of 2 billion board feet. Structural panels, another billion square feet. To drive this shift, Ottawa would launch Build Canada Homes, a direct government effort to finance deeply affordable housing, backed by $25 billion in credit for innovative builders. Homes that would be built with Canadian technology, Canadian materials, Canadian workers. This wasn't tinkering at the edges. It was a bold, post-war style industrial strategy, a bet on resilience, a bet on independence, a bet on Canada. And Carney made sure to place this fight in a larger frame, because the truth is, softwood lumber is just the beginning. American trade pressures have intensified, broadened, spread across industries. Washington is re-engineering its trade policy, charging partners for access, raising tariffs, forcing unilateral concessions, and demanding investment inside the United States. In that world, Canada cannot afford to sit still. Yes, we are smaller, but we are not weak. Canada is already the second largest foreign investor in the U.S. Our companies are embedded in the supply chains that power American competitiveness. We are not a junior partner. We are a critical partner. That's why this dispute is more than policy. It's a direct challenge to Canada's economic model and to the leadership of the Prime Minister himself. But Carney wasn't there to defend his own reputation. He was there to reshape the country. This is the boldest industrial shift since the post-war era, he declared, and the numbers backed him up. More than $1.4 billion in immediate support for forestry, reskilling, and housing construction. New initiatives to catalyze markets in Europe and Asia, a long-term vision to ensure that when Washington swings, Canada doesn't crumble. While Trump throws punches, Carney lays foundations. While others talk retaliation, Carney talks resilience, and Canadians can feel the difference. This isn't politics as usual. It's not just speeches and sound bites. It's action measured in billions, aimed at transforming the economy itself. Because at the core, this is about identity. What kind of country Canada wants to be? Dependent on the whims of Washington, or confident, self-reliant, able to stand tall no matter which way the White House winds blow? In his closing words, Carney captured the shift. For the first time in a long time, Canada isn't just playing defense. We're building a future that doesn't depend on the mood swings of Washington. We're building it with Canadian lumber, Canadian workers, and Canadian values. That was the line. The pivot, the redefinition of the fight. Canada isn't retreating. Canada is reinventing. And the truth is, this moment could mark a turning point, not just for trade policy, but for the very shape of the Canadian economy in the decades ahead. History tells us something. When nations are cornered, they choose, they either fold or they transform. Canada has chosen, and what comes next could change the story forever. So, the question is now yours. Is this the moment Canada finally stands up for itself? Or is it only the beginning of something much bigger? Subscribe to Canada Today, your front row seat to the biggest stories reshaping our country. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss what comes next. And tell us in the comments below, is this bold new plan enough? Or will the storm from Washington only get worse